Hello, and welcome to Breast Cancer Conversations, a podcast brought to you by survivingbreastcancer.org. I am Laura Carfang, breast cancer survivor and founder of survivingbreastcancer.org, a nonprofit organization providing community, education, and resources to empower those diagnosed with breast cancer and their caregivers from day one and beyond. Hello, my friends, and welcome to another episode of Breast Cancer Conversations. I am joined today with two remarkable women, Paula and Teresa. Each who have been living with metastatic disease for over 5 years. Paula celebrating 5 years herself at the time of this recording, and Teresa, who is approaching an incredible 10 years living with MBC. Together, we have a great conversation about what it's like to live with MBC for the long term. We talk about anxiety, relationships, work, disability, finding the right support systems, palliative care, and the emotional evolution that happens over time.
I was kind of seeing a guy one time, and when I disclosed to him that I was stage 4, he's like, shouldn't you be in bed, or you're dying? And I was like, well, no, I'm doing okay. So
Oh my gosh.
yeah, people's notions of what stage 4 is so different from what it really is.
Welcome to the conversation.
My name is Paula Bouckhuyt. I live in Omaha, Nebraska, and this year is 5 years for me with metastatic breast cancer. I hit that milestone in March, so not far into my plus 5 years. I have been on Xeloda since they found my mets in my spine, and I've had a couple mets in a couple ribs. Both areas have been treated with radiation. And then the Xeloda that I do, I'm on a 3-week cycle. So I take the Xeloda for 2 weeks, take a week off, start it all over again. And I've been doing that for 5 years. I would say for me, it just gets old. It just gets old having to keep track of the chemo and how often my scans are. And yes, my doctor does as well, but I have medical training as my background, and so I like to stay on top of things as well. I get tired.
Yeah.
You know, you get tired of thinking about it. You get tired about worrying about it. You know, what's this scan going to show, or what's that scan going to show? And, it's always there in the back of your mind. It could be this scan. It could be this scan. Where things change for worse. I've been very lucky in that it's only gone to my bones. And in 2024, I actually had spine surgery because the vertebrae that it had been in essentially just fell apart, fractured into many pieces. And so I had a pretty major back surgery to take that vertebrae out and correct the other issues around it. And so that was actually a 2-day surgery, about 9 hours of surgery one day, and then another 4 the second day. Yeah. So on top of the cancer being in my spine, I don't have a great spine to begin with. So this just compounded things. It was funny when my oncologist asked me, well, does it hurt? And I'm like, well, yeah, but it always hurt. And so that was, not necessarily a good indicator for myself, but I'm very, very blessed to be 5 years plus. I feel very lucky. I have an amazing support system of friends, family alike, and I couldn't do it without them.
Amazing. Were you diagnosed de novo metastatic?
I was not.
Okay.
I was diagnosed originally in 2017, stage 1A. I had a lumpectomy and did radiation, no chemo at that time. And then they found the mets incidentally. I had gone in for a chest CT for a totally different reason. And so I like to say it was an act of God that they found it when they did, because who knows how long it could have been there. But no, I was 4 years out from my original diagnosis when they found the mets.
Thank you for sharing and explaining that.
Yeah.
And we'll definitely get back to that. Teresa, I'd love to hear where you're calling in from and a little bit about your diagnosis, how many years it's been for you.
Well, I'm also from Omaha. This August, it will be 10 years.
Congratulations.
Thank you. And let's see. I don't know. It was in my lungs, so I had a partial lung removed on my right side. Lower right lobe was removed. So I do have problems breathing once in a while. But other than that, I'm fairly good. I'm on Ibrance, and that is my first line of treatment, and I've been on that since 2017 in February. I have gone down on the dose of it and changed like my routine. You're supposed to be on it 3 weeks on, off a week, but my blood counts are never good enough. So I'm on 3 weeks on and 2 weeks off. So yeah. And I was not diagnosed de novo. I originally was diagnosed with stage 1, excuse me, B, in September of 2009. So I've been dealing with cancer for almost 17 years in one form or another. Wow. So yeah, that's kind of my story. I rely on my family and friends and my faith to get me through all of this. So yeah, I'm quite fortunate that it hasn't spread anyplace else besides my lung. It did go to my the left lung in 2022, but that was treated with radiation and that went away. So since then I've been steady. I want to say cancer free, but I know that's not the term. I've been no evidence of active disease since then. Yes. That's part of my story, yeah.
Thank you for sharing that. And so with both of you having an earlier stage diagnosis, especially when you think about stage 1, and we talk to a lot of women who are stage 0, DCIS, stage 1. I was diagnosed with stage 2B with involvement in the lymph nodes. And so, while I'm still early stage, I still continuously think, okay, when's the shoe going to drop? Because you just have the sense that 30% of us early stagers will have metastasis at some point.
Yeah.
Teresa, I'm curious, in your experience, because you've been living with us for so long, when did you find out that it metastasized to your lungs? Was it through?
It was because I was stage 1. I never had any scans, and I don't know why they never do that for a stage 1 person. But I had developed a cough that would not go away. And my coworkers were like, you need to go see a doctor. So I said, okay. So I made an appointment, and he says, well, your lungs sound okay, but let's get a chest x-ray. And it was during that chest x-ray that they found the lump in the mass or whatever in my lung. So then I went from there to a lung doctor and surgeon and just kind of took off from there.
Yeah.
So,
and did they explain to you like this was the metastasis from the breast cancer versus it being a new primary like lung cancer? Because I think that's a misconception we hear a lot as well too. And Paula, even in your case too, where like went to the bones, does this now mean I have bone cancer? And it does not. I want to take a quick moment and tell you something I'm really excited about. You can now download the survivingbreastcancer.org app directly from the App Store or Google Play. Just search for survivingbreastcancer.org. It is completely free to download, and inside you will have access to all of our support groups, educational programs and webinars, all of our blog content and articles, podcast episodes, and community features to connect with others who understand what you're going through. Everything in one place, because navigating breast cancer shouldn't require 15 open browser tabs. Download the app today.
Well, at first, no, they weren't sure. And so what they did was they did a biopsy, and that's when they determined that it was breast cancer and not lung cancer.
Okay.
That breast cancer spread to my lung, not lung cancer. So, yeah.
They did the same for me.
Yes. So, Paula, what was going through your mind? It sounds like in both of your stories as well, there's this, I always get scared going to the doctors now. Like when I was young, I was like, oh, you got a clean bill of health. It was easy. Or if you broke a bone, they would put a cast on it. They would fix it. Like they were the people that supported me and always gave me the answers, and they would fix things. And then a cancer diagnosis is like, oh gosh, do we want to do another test? Do we want to do another scan? If you're going to keep looking, you're going to find eventually something. So can we just please stop with all the testing? So Paula, what was going through your mind when you found out that through this CT scan that you unexpectedly had metastasis?
Well, I was very lucky that I knew my doctor very well. And we actually worked in the same office together. And so we had a pretty close relationship. She had sent me for this CT because I had had some abnormal blood work that could have possibly indicated a blood clot. I was having really sharp pains on my left side, right under my breast area. And so I had just gotten to my vehicle after having the scan when she called me. And so I sat in the parking lot as she went over everything, and she said, "Hey, you have 3 broken ribs, and that's why you have all this pain. We still do not know how I broke my ribs."
Wow.
I say it was a God thing. You know, if I hadn't had those, I wouldn't have gone for the CT. So 3 broken ribs, a spot on my left breast that they weren't sure about, and then the lesion in my spine. So it was a multitude of things to worry about all at once. And I called my sister and I said, I can't call mom and dad and scare the shit out of them. Excuse me. I can't
That's
call
okay.
them and scare the crap out of them. But I can call my sister and I can say, okay, you have to talk me down from the sledge. And it was a rocky couple weeks until we had results from biopsies and plans and a new diagnosis. And it was very overwhelming. I'm a single mom. I had 2 children still living with me. Well, they still do. But yeah, it was scary.
What type of sage advice did your sister provide? How did she come to support you during this moment of waiting on results, the uncertainty, and just kind of that, living minute by minute almost? Sometimes we just need to take that breath of like, okay, don't think 3 days from now, but like, what do I need to do in the next hour to take care of myself, take care of my kids, get food on the table? Like, what are the must-haves?
Yeah. Yeah. The best thing my sister said to me is, no matter what, we are here for you. And let me know that I would have their support no matter what. And to remind me that I wasn't doing this alone. The reassurance and the community from my family, especially. And of course, she also encouraged me to call my parents and also talk to them, which I did when I got home. But she talked me off the ledge enough that I could make it home safely.
Yes.
So,
yes, very important.
yeah.
And Teresa, my question for you, Paula was talking a little bit early on in the introduction about just living with a metastatic diagnosis for years, and in her case, 5 years, and then how it just gets old. You're taking these medicines, you're going to scans, and you approaching or congratulating yourself on, 10 years on Ibrance, which is phenomenal. How often are you getting scanned, and what do you do to kind of manage leading up to those appointments?
Oh, well, I was getting scans every 6 months. And then on my last scan, it showed some concerning things, and they weren't quite sure. I had been sick with a bad cold for several weeks. So they weren't sure if what they saw on the scans was the result of that. So now I'm having a scan again in 3 months. Well, yeah, later this month, it's 3 months. So the scans don't so much, most of the time don't bother me, but like if there's something concerning, so I'm a little concerned about the one that's coming up. But most of the time they don't bother me because, like I said, we're up to 6 months, and we had talked about possibly after the next 6 months going to a year because everything had been okay for so long. So now I don't know if we'll go back, if this shows everything's okay, if we'll go back to the 6 months for a while again, or if we'll continue to do 3 months again. So I try not to think about them. That's my honest opinion. I just kind of blot it out of my mind so that it doesn't stress me out. And I'm a person who believes that everything's going to be okay. That may be a little naive on my part, but so far that has worked for me. So that's what I go with.
I love that. And the power of the mind and the mentality and the mindset. And, that was going to be my next question. Like, how do you navigate this? What tools have you found? So, just kind of having that mindset of that outlook that everything's going to be okay. Even if it's not, we just have to keep telling ourselves these mantras.
Yeah. And part of it, I believe, is I had a wonderful oncologist, and I had him since my first diagnosis until he retired like 3 years ago. And he was, there's no expiration date for you, and I'll take care of you, so don't worry about a thing. So that's kind of what I did. Great. I put it up in his hands and God's hands and anybody's hands but myself. to worry about.
That's
Because I,
great.
like Paula, I'm a single mom. And at that time, my kids were still in school while my son was. My daughter had just graduated and was attending college. And so I was like, I can't leave them. So I've got to trust the doctor to lead me to the right path. And that's how I existed and how I still kind of exist.
Paula, what about you? Are there tools that help you kind of manage living scan to scan?
I would say I like Teresa. I try not to stress about them until about the night before. And then it's a little harder for me to fall asleep the night before my scan because for me, it's always in the back of my mind. Will it be this scan? But yeah, antidepressants are a great thing.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I'm not sure if I also use some herbal supplements.
Absolutely.
To help me sleep, especially. So those things help.
I think those are really important topics to actually address, right? So when we're living with this disease and trying to figure out, like, some people could be so anti medications or drugs or different support tools. And in fact, I was one of those people. I was living a very strict vegan life. I barely put anything in my body until I got diagnosed. But once the chemo came through, I was like, well, I'm toxic now. It doesn't really matter. And at the same time, too, I think it allowed me and gives us some opportunity to normalize the taboo of, we need to see mental health professionals, psychiatrists, psychologists. We don't need to live in this rut if there are medications that can help us navigate day to day, being able to wake up, get to work, drive, function. And that's a really good thing. And that's a really positive thing. And so I definitely am glad that you have found that myself as well. There were times, my husband loves telling this story, where I was driving on the highway to work. It was a beautiful sky and the birds were chirping. There wasn't too much traffic for Boston. Like, it was fine. And I just start crying, like, out of the blue. And like, my mascara is running and I call him. He's like, pull over, pull over, stop the car, like, take a picture, talk about it, show your friends, be like, is anyone else in the breast cancer community having these bouts of just emotional highs and lows? And just to know that it wasn't just me experiencing this emotional high and low, but so many people suffer from this, and especially on the toxic chemicals that we're on and how it changes our hormones and our chemistry. So I think there's a lot to be said for that.
Yeah. For me, palliative care has actually been really good for me to manage my pain. And it wasn't something I knew a lot about until a year and a half ago. And so I'm really glad that I made that switch and that I am now working with palliative care, because for those that don't know, palliative care kind of covers all the things that cancer affects. And so they ask about the mental health, they ask about the finances, they ask about the physical and treat my pain. And what's really nice is they're not judgmental about handing out those pain meds. And I don't walk away feeling like a drug seeker. They get it.
Yes.
So
Well, I'm glad you discovered palliative care, and I want to linger on that just a little bit, because how did you learn about palliative care? And then at what point, for someone who's like listening to this episode right now, like, at what point do you ask to see if like you have access to a palliative care team?
I heard about it through the community, mainly through Casey, honestly, but through the Project Pink community. I heard about it, and I would say, if as soon as you think that you need something more out of your oncologist that they can't give you, go see palliative care. I don't care if you're stage 1 or stage 4. They're there for everybody, and it is never too early to start with them, in my opinion.
Yes. Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. Teresa, similar question. Have you leaned on palliative care teams throughout your 10 years?
No, I have not. I did ask to see like a therapist for a while, but I was going through a bunch of problems at that time. My daughter was in a toxic relationship. My sister was dying, and it was, and having cancer, it was just all too much at one time for me. So I did see a therapist for a while, but I've not done palliative care because I don't have the pain. I mean, I do get short of breath, but I don't have pain
Mhm.
anywhere except for old age, I guess you'd call it. But other than that, no, I haven't.
Yeah. Well, it's
But
there
I
if
would,
and when you need it.
yeah,
Yes,
I would.
absolutely. I'm curious for both of you. And, we're kind of talking about living with MBC for 5+ years. And I actually love this combination between both of you, Paula and Teresa, where we have 5 years and 10 years. I'm curious, and Teresa, maybe we'll start with you. How has your relationship with your diagnosis evolved over time? Has it changed when you were, just trying to get through like the first year learning that you had metastatic breast cancer to, okay, I'm hitting these milestones, or the scans are still showing that I'm stable or no evidence of active disease? I'm still on my first line of treatment. Has your relationship with the diagnosis changed?
I think it's changed a lot because at the very beginning, especially when I first went on Ibrance, it was fairly new. And a lot of women that I had met in a support group I joined, they had been on it and it had failed them. So they were on a second line. And it's like, is that not going to work for me? How long am I going to live? And unfortunately, a lot of these women, after shortly being taken off of Ibrance, they were gone. So it was like, it's not going to work that long for me. So each year that it continued to work, I kind of got less stressed. Now I'm to the point where, yeah, it's going to work forever, I'm
Yeah.
hoping anyway, knock on wood.
Knock on wood.
But
Yep.
yeah, so it's a lot less stressful for me than it was in the beginning. And I have less, as you get farther along and things are doing okay, I have less doctor appointments. I do monthly blood draws, so I have that to worry about. But other than that, it's a lot less stressful for me than it was in the beginning.
That's really
So,
great to hear.
yeah.
Paula, what about you? How has your relationship changed now that you've hit this 5-year mark?
I would have to actually kind of go right along with what Teresa said. The further out you get, the less stressful it is. When I was first diagnosed, I was like, I'm going to be dead in 5 years. I'm going to just do what I want to do, and I'm going to spend what I want to spend, and who cares? And now I'm kind of realizing that I need to make certain funds last a little bit longer, because I don't know how long I've got. And I know this sounds absolutely horrible. I have parents. My dad is 80, my mom is 79, and they have both also had cancer, but they basically did surgery and had to do no other treatment and are doing amazing. Some days my mom will come work in my garden and she can literally run circles around me. And I'm like, okay, so darn it, I might live long enough that I might outlive them. And I might have to bury my parents. And I don't know if I want to do that. And I was, I was kind of hoping I'd go 1st. But, irrational thinking, of course. But yeah, your perspective changes and you realize that, okay, I'm going to keep going and I'm going to live my life. And I was unable to work about 2 years ago. I had 2 back surgeries in 2024. And after that, I just couldn't return to work. And so I have been on disability since then. And I'm okay with that. I at least am not still working and having to deal with that. So I can enjoy life a little bit more.
Excellent. I'm curious too, and I appreciate you guys sharing your relationships of living with MBC for these durations and how that relationship has changed. Has it also changed relationships with family or friends, current or past coworkers? I'm asking also in the sense because, just from the video, right? Like you guys does not look like you're going through chemo where you're losing your hair. You look like young and healthy and vibrant and all of these things, right? And so that phrase of like, well, you don't look sick. How are you living with a terminal disease? And I remember like when I was going through chemo, like I lost my eyebrows and my eyelashes, like I looked sick. You couldn't hide it. Like whether I wanted to tell you or not, you knew. And then now if I'm meeting new friends or new people, I'm like, at what point do I let them know that I was diagnosed with breast cancer? Does it come up? Does it need to come up? Should it come up? And so I'm just curious, the further out you guys are getting as well, like how does it impact relationships?
You still have those people that don't want to be around you because you do have cancer. But then there are people who say, oh, you're fine. You don't for those days where you're too tired, you're exhausted physically, and you can't do certain things. They don't understand. Well, you don't look sick. Well, I'm not really sick. I'm just having some side effects that I can't be around people, and they'll get upset. So, and some of those people just walk away from you. But then there are those who realize that you do still have cancer, even though you look like you don't, and they stay there for you. And they're there and they help you on those days that you need help. So it does change some relationships. And even in my family, I had one of my sisters who couldn't accept that I had cancer. So she kind of stepped away for like almost 2 years. And then she came back, and then she got really ill she was diabetic, and she eventually died from that. Whereas I'm like, she wasn't that sick, and then she got real sick all of a sudden, and she's gone, but I'm still here. So it does change your relationships with some people who can't handle, even though you're not sick all the time and don't look sick. So.
Yeah, Paula, what about for you? Or even relationship with your kids, right?
The relationship with my kids hasn't had to change a whole lot because I have been able and still do pretty much everything I did before. I just can't lift heavy things. And that's more because of my back than because of the cancer. I'm lucky that I've kind of lost a couple people, but they weren't real integral in my life to begin with. So, but my closest friends, they're closer.
Yeah.
They check on me. My family's good about checking in on me, especially if they know I'm having a rough patch or whatever. But it's funny, I'll never recall. I was kind of seeing a guy one time, and when I disclosed to him that I was stage 4, he's like, shouldn't you like be in bed, or like, you're like dying? And I was like, well, nope, I'm doing okay. So,
Oh my gosh.
yeah, people's notions of what stage 4 is so different from what it really is at at the stage that I'm at. So,
and you hear a lot too, where women or people with metastatic breast cancer are being encouraged to move, to incorporate movement, walking, light stretching. That can also help mitigate the fatigue and some of the side effects, so long as like you're cleared with your doctor and everything too. So it's no longer this idea of just like lying in bed and waiting to like perspire, I guess.
Yep. I go to the gym and walk 2 to 3 miles, 5 to 6 days a week with my parents, actually.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah. And so they have the Live Strong program. I don't know if you're familiar with that.
Excellent program.
Highly recommend that to anyone. Is the Live Strong program through the YMCA. It's a wonderful program. So I'll give a little shout out to them. But, I stay active and I stay moving, and I do as much as I can. And, I had my realtor thinks when I sell this house that I should go into a ranch. And he's like, 'cause then there's not stairs. I'm like, yeah, but then I'm not doing stairs and keeping that. So,
Yes.
yeah.
Yeah. Pros and cons. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Is there anything in your experience living with MBC and the duration in which you have been living with MBC that has surprised you that you were not expecting?
I'm surprised, first and foremost, that I'm still here, given, when you first Google metastatic breast cancer, which I thankfully didn't do the first day, it's scary. And I'm also very grateful that my chemo comes in pill form and I don't have to go somewhere and do infusions that take hours. And, the one infusion I get is Zometa, which is supposed to strengthen the bones to counterset that side effect from the chemo. And that takes like 20 minutes. So I tell people, honestly, I've got it pretty lucky. I haven't lost my hair. I don't have a ton of side effects on the dose that I'm on. We've had to do 2 dose reductions with mine, but we found a good dose, and I'm just grateful to still be here. And if that makes taking chemo pills for the rest of my life, I'll do it.
Yeah. Beautiful.
Yep.
What about you, Teresa?
Yeah, I'm like Paula. I am kind of surprised I'm still here. And I'm grateful that I do take a chemo pill instead of having the infusions just like her. I guess that's about it. I'm just happy to be here and to see my kids. Both my kids are out of college and doing well, both in the medical profession. I've got to see 2 grandkids so far, and I have another one on the way due in September. And that's something I never thought I might not see. So I am blessed in that fact. So yeah.
For someone who's listening and maybe on the earlier side of just recently getting a metastatic diagnosis, not necessarily treatment related, but just, any tips or recommendations or words of advice, just living a life now that you've heard the words MBC. We talked a little bit about kind of the challenges of like the scans and just the routine and all of these things. And both of you have been doing this for a number of years. And so for someone who's like, oh gosh, now what? What words of wisdom would you like to share?
I'd say don't give up hope. Don't Google everything because when you Google stuff, you Google stuff that is very scary. So stay away from Googling and believe in yourself. Know that things hopefully will work out for you and just kind of, as they say, trust the process.
Yes.
Because
That's the process.
Yeah, the process. Things can be okay. Just believe. That's how I get by. And that's what I would say to people. Don't give up hope. And join a support group because I think that's the most important thing. When I was first diagnosed the first time, I knew of no support groups whatsoever. So I was just out there by myself. And then even when I was diagnosed the second time, there wasn't a whole lot of groups around. And Project Pink wasn't around then. And I had they had opened up a new cancer center where I go, and they had brochures out, and one was for a group that had a support group for just women with it was women with stage 4 cancer, any kind of cancer. So I kind of joined that, and that's where I got support and hope for the future and words of advice from ladies who had been in it for a while. So that was a great benefit to me. So I would say look for a support group, either online or in person.
Great advice. And Paula, I see you shaking your head to a lot of these.
Support. And Teresa's right. Find the group that works for you. I too went to a group one evening early on in my diagnosis, and I knew shortly after walking in that was not the group for me. Wonderful group of ladies, but I just knew it wasn't for me. I was the only one. I was still in my 40s then, and they all at least were 70 at the minimum and on up, and I knew that just wasn't a good fit for me.
Sure.
They'd all been done with treatment, yada, yada, yada. But find the group that works for you. Take care of your mental health. Advocate for yourself. If you're feeling ill, if you're whatever, advocate for yourself. And don't be afraid to ask questions.
Excellent. Excellent. Well, I really appreciated this conversation. I hope Teresa joins us again. I think she popped off for a hot minute. But is there anything else that we did not cover or talk about that you would like to leave with our listeners along the themes of, living with metastatic disease and living it for the long term?
The only other thing I would say is don't be afraid to try new things. I went back to school with metastatic breast cancer and at the age of 50, and I learned how to do CTs. Don't be afraid. Don't let it hold you back. If there's something you want to do or something you want to try, do it.
Do it. Perfect. Well, I appreciate the time, the stories, your outlook, and sharing the realities of what it is like living with metastatic disease for 5+ years. Thank you for joining us today.
Yeah, thank you.
And thank you, everyone, for listening to our show. I would like to acknowledge that all of the information on our podcast is from personal experiences and is not a substitute for professional medical advice. You should always contact your medical care team. If you are looking for specific topics or would like to be a guest on our show, please feel free to reach out. My email is laura@survivingbreastcancer.org. Our show is made possible by our nonprofit, survivingbreastcancer.org, and by our incredible donors like yourself. You can hop on over to survivingbreastcancer.org to sign up for our mailing list, make a donation, and explore the 400+ programs we offer each year, at survivingbreastcancer.org/events. Until next time, keep on thriving.